BBOC9916J East Green Bay Road. Mr. Miller, please don't question my motivation. I'm not here speaking in favor of this legislation because I dislike the idea of a 32,000 square foot hotel on 2 acres on East Green Bay Road. The fact that the building and its septic system won't fit on one of those properties is probably enough to say, what the heck are you doing? Its lack of fitting the character, the rural character of the neighborhood, where it's surrounded by homes of some less than 1,000 square feet. I think all within shooting distance are less than 2,000 square feet. I'd like to also respond to the idea of this being a knee-jerk reaction. I agree it is. It is a reaction. If I were to walk up to somebody and smack them in the face, they'd cover up. This interim proposed legislation is a cover-up. It's protection in order to determine what the next action is. This is not a permanent ordinance going in. This is one that has a 6-month window on it. It puts the clock running for the DCD and the Planning Commission to come up with those county-wide inputs to determine how best to make sure that we don't, in the future, have someone trying to put a 32,000 square feet hotel on a 2-acre piece of land, which is sensitive environmentally and sensitive in terms of the density that would be running up and down the road. Let's go ahead and cover up. Let's give the DCD and any concerned citizen within this county the opportunity to give their input and determine how best we collectively can limit the likelihood of a repeat. I recognize that the existing building, or the existing proposed building, needs to work within the existing ordinances. That's a given. Let's not continue arguing that. I don't think it fits. So, like anything legal, of course, I'm mildly concerned that somebody would do something silly and authorize this building. I don't think they will. But let's define it more carefully so that future developers don't make this mistake. There are actually other properties on East Gwynn Bay Road which would easily accommodate a 32,000 square foot, whatever we call this hotel, mansion, bed and breakfast, resort, retreat, I don't care. They tend to be about 20 or 30 acres. The impact of that kind of density is much more acceptable. So every ordinance represents a restriction of the rights of some individual. That's the definition. It's done as a group effort. It's done as a county-wide effort. It's done as a consensus. So let's hold up the concern that we may have yet another 32,000 square foot building showing up in an R2 or an R5 anywhere, including Forks, where we have no rain shadow. And let's avoid limiting property rights any more than is communally responsible. Please pass. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Francisco de la Cruz, 238 Rhapsody Drive. And unlike our friends in South America that didn't recognize a threat in the ships when it came, we recognize threats. And they come in glass and closed all metal buildings 3 stories high above the ground in a place that doesn't fit. Yes, attorneys are paid to get their clients what it is they're seeking. But sometimes attorneys need to be aware that getting one client something is getting a lot of other clients something they don't want. That's why we're here. And as my neighbor and friend Bill mentioned, this is 6 months. That's a long time for the rest of the county to get informed and get on board and get their opinions heard, like these folks took the time out of their days and their schedules to come and express their concerns early and often. Because it is a serious erosion of what I understood the comprehensive plan to be for this area. I thought that Alamrid, a local area of more intensive rural development, said anything you put on here has got to look like something that existed prior to 1990. Now, is that a fantasy? Is that something I made up? How does this building fit even that definition? It's not as crisp as it says it might be. It didn't define the features, the roof pitch, or the finishes, or anything like that. But anybody with common sense can look at that and say, that doesn't look rural at all to me. First of all, there's no pitch to any of the roofs. You know, most of the square buildings are in commercial zones, or they're not necessarily, unless you're an ultra-modern 1%er, a residence, whether it's a mansion, a trophy home, or whatever. Folks around here are using their common sense and calling a duck. It's a hotel. Call it anything you want. It's a hotel on a spot that's too small. And 6 months is a long enough time for anybody that gives a rat's to get involved. You know, it takes a lot of money to put something down over 8,000 square feet. My Garsholeum, my garage shop playroom, is 40 by 40. I mean, most people say, that's a garage. Jesus. My wife calls it my Taj Mahal. But it met all the laws, met all the regulations, and if this person really has their heart set on owning this, find an appropriate location. It's not 695 East Green Bay Road. This county is huge. There's plenty of places, $20 million will do a lot of good if that's what it's really worth. Not on East Green Bay Road. For all of the reasons we've mentioned and plenty more. So I urge you, it's only 6 months. In 6 months, all the folks that have all the money they're not spending right now can come and tell you differently. Don't extend it. But let's wait. Let's give the Department of Community Development, the Planning Commission, the time and breathing space to react to the slap on the head that we got by this application. Thank you.
Anything else? No other comments? Move to close the public hearing. Seconded, close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Carries. Anything you want to add, Mary Ellen or Steve?
Not excited. I mean,
I do want to say that when I started here 24 years ago as an architect, the first home that I designed was 9,000 square feet. And it had 2 elevators, 2 stairways, a hunting den, and a conservatory. And it was a big house. And I really suspect that the 10,000 square feet, as we do our study, it's not going to be the square footage of the building that's going to be such the issue. It's more the commercial component that goes in it. And I think that that's what we're going to probably end up studying just as much as this. But again, like the 2 gentlemen said, this is only for 6 months. And it gives us time to deal with the issues.
I lied. I have a couple things to say, but yes, the 10,000 square foot is pretty a blunt tool. And when we originally proposed that with the emergency ordinance, our quick and dirty research and applying the assessor's database for planning is challenging based on how the data is stored. But the 10,000 square foot was based on a single family dwelling, not necessarily other structures that might be in the rural area, such as a school or a church or a larger facility. That 10,000 square foot was a residential building, and that was based on the living space, so basically the heated space. There are certainly some structures, even residential, if you include the attached garage and attics and basements and attached decks and porches that would even exceed that and be a single family residence. But by and large, we're really starting to analyze that data and looking at the minimum and median and average home sizes and structures. And most of the, I mean, just give you a couple of quotes of those zones that are in this ordinance, and this is just dealing with what we think, looking at the data, is the residential structure, not necessarily a school. building or church. But the median for living, for the bulk, and the bulk on this now would include the heated space, but also a basement, an attic, attached garage, those things that you would actually likely see. The median across those zones ranges from 1,500 square feet to over 4,700 square feet. And that 4,700 square foot is in the rural suburban community zones. For those of you on the east end of the county, that would be Bell Hill. So Bell Hill, definitely on average homes and structures are a lot larger. But yes, there are structures that are definitely larger than 10,000 square feet. I'd also point out in some of the comments that yes, if a comprehensive plan amendment is needed as part of any permanent rules, because such amendments would be inconsistent with our current policies, the Planning Commission and the Department will work with the Planning Commission to identify those and recommend those concurrently. I think some of the policies we noted in the findings, and there certainly can be other, are kind of the core of why we're doing this. The rural character policy is right out of the comprehensive plan. Is not verbatim, but very close to what's in the Growth Management Act. The definition of rural development is right out of our comprehensive plan and very similar to the Growth Management Act. So these policies do exist. Now it's up to us to decide, do we need additional visioning and to determine whether certain types of commercial uses or accessory uses, how you want to define them to a single family home, need to be analyzed, and I think that's what we're doing with the Planning Commission. We struggled whether we should apply to all rural zones, and certainly these rural zones occur through the county. Are they the whole county? No, because our rural zoning in general, don't quote me on this, but it's rural zoning in general is going to be between about 10% of the county. But that 10%, we have a large county, is thousands and thousands of acres. Those zones do have different density requirements, from half-acre zoning to 20 acres, but even in the low-density zones, there are pre-existing lots that might be, like in our rural very low, our 20-acre zone. Not every lot is necessarily going to be 20 acres large. There might be some small lots that are in holdings in there. So we decided, in terms of for the interim, that it just be a heavy size standard instead of overthinking it while we're thinking of the permanent rules and going through that process. That made sense. The